Hi everyone, my name is Jamie San Antonio. I'm the visual media director here at WRSU. We're located in New Brunswick, and I'm sitting here with
Madison. I'm also a senior. I'm also part of WRSU, and I host a show on Tuesday called Tuesday Grooves.
Okay, so today we are here with the band Couch, and they're here to promote their newest EP, Sunshower. Let's start off by just going around, introducing your name and your position.
I'm
My name,
Jeffrey.
Oh,
Oh no, I got this one. I'm
take it
Jeffrey.
away.
I play the trumpet, so I have to go first. Um, yeah, it's really fun to be here again.
My name is Eric Tarlin. I play the saxophone for Couch and do some production writing. Jeff does some production and writing as well. We're happy to be here.
thank you
Awesome. We're
guys.
glad to have you guys.
Okay, so my first question is last time you were here with WRSU was 2 years ago, February 2021. I'm curious to see how you guys have changed, especially since you were previously like a long distance band and now you're back on tour, you're touring the country, and you're, I assume, back together physically.
That's crazy. February 2021. I'm trying to like piece together what was happening then. So like half of the band at that point was just about to graduate college. We had just released, or we were about to release our first EP, just Couch EP. And we hadn't even played our first gig as a full band yet at that point. And yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, it's weird because a lot of our early music was made virtually, like you guys were mentioning. But we hadn't ever we never jammed on the songs. We'd never played them together in person. So we only existed in this virtual vacuum. And now we've had about 2 years of doing live shows since live music came back in 2021. And we've gotten to write and record our music in person, which we didn't get to do very easily in the beginning of COVID. So yeah, we just released our second EP called Sunshower, and I think we're kind of experimenting with a few different genres and sounds, and I think the music sounds different, but hopefully still like us. So it's a different time. It's cool. You guys caught us on this station right around the first big release and right around the second release.
Yeah.
So it's milestones for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. You want to ask the next question?
Yeah. So speaking of Sunshower, we wanted to ask like kind of what inspired you, and I'm sure like a lot of things did, but specifically like with your sound, like kind of evolving and like you guys are like growing like in terms of like your production or like as instrumentalists, what inspired that sound specifically or that writing?
Um, I guess I wouldn't say that Sunshower, this EP, is a concept album or anything like that. But I would say that there's a common thread between all of the songs, which is kind of this relationship between good things and bad things in life and relationships and, our situations as musicians, all of this stuff. And it's just something that a lot of us really relate to within the band, which is that there are lots of really great things going on for us as individuals and as a collective group. But then there's also a lot of stress and a lot of tough decisions that we have to make. And I feel like in some way, every song on the EP comes back to that, this duality of good and bad.
Yeah, it lines up with our own growth just as humans. And I think our sound and our instrumentation is often associated with overwhelming positivity, like upbeat poppy music with horns, and it's just like a joyful combination of instruments. And we love that, and it brings us joy too. But one part of growing older for me, and I think for a lot of us, like Jeff is saying, is realizing that there's a lot of nuance to everything in life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny. The name Sunshower, I think Jeff, you suggested it originally because it was just really sensory, inspiring concept, but you kind of just like randomly suggested it. And then we thought about this kind of duality meaning of like there's the sun and rain happening at the same time. And that sort of represents the flip sides of different things that happen to every one of us. So it's funny how it started out as a brainstorm, and then we kind of found this through line that represents just where we are in our music and in our lives.
Awesome. I love that. I love like that
Yeah.
duality.
Yeah, we were just
Also-
gonna ask about the title of the album too, so thanks for that. Also I was curious, I was researching you guys and I heard that you got your name because Zach got a concussion and then you're writing in the dark on the couch. And then I heard other like interesting music processes like your FaceTiming sessions. So do you guys have any unique processes now for writing music, or is it just like back to normal?
It really varies from song to song. Um, I think for this project, a lot of the songs started out kind of on two separate tracks that converge. So like one track is Tema is generally our singer. Tema Siegel is the person whose personal experiences are inspiring the song. So she takes notes of things that happened to her. She kind of journals a little bit and writes poems and lyrics, and she'll bring a nugget of an idea to the rest of us, and we'll write the lyrics to the song. But at the same time, we have a bunch of us who provide kind of a little melodic or harmonic inspiration. So we have these completely musical ideas and these completely conceptual ideas, and it's kind of about finding the right fit between what's going on in our brains musically and what's going on in our lives not musically. So I think this time around, it's been really fun to collaborate in person more. And one thing that we've gotten to experiment with for the first time is writing and figuring out the arrangements for these songs in person in the same room. So we'll have a partially like a song that's mostly written, but we don't really know how the recording is going to sound. And we'll just get together in the same room and experiment with every possible drum groove we can think of, and every possible, like, okay, if this time guitar do just single notes in a really funky rhythm, and keyboard play the chords, and then we'll switch it around, and just every permutation we can think of. And that sort of trial through experimentation has led to some results that we're excited about.
Yeah, I would also say that there are also two pipelines of how we prepare our music in general. So on this EP itself, some of the songs were prepared and conceptualized more as a collective, like all 7 of us or a large chunk of us in the room together, arranging it, rehearsing it, preparing it for a live show before we ever got around to recording it. And then some of the other songs were the opposite. We wrote and recorded and arranged all of it before we had played it all together as a band. And this kind of impacts how we perform the songs live. Some of them it's, oh, we've been doing this song live for a bit. How can we up the recorded version and make the recorded version just as exciting as the live version and not just the same thing? And then there's the exact opposite, which is we just recorded this song, but we've never played it live. How can we make the live version not sound empty compared to the recorded version when we can track a million vocal harmonies and auxiliary percussion instruments and things like that? So it's a fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's like one of like the coolest parts is like, at least for me, like I love going to shows and like I love live music, and like you get kind of like both of those aspects of like the live music is like awesome, and then like you could like listen to it in like your own time, and like I feel like it's sometimes hard to find that balance between like not like I want to like make it sound exactly the same, but like how do we make it like us? So that's really cool. For our next question, we wanted to ask, because I know like from the interview I watched before of you guys, like a lot of you guys have like a jazz background, right? Or like a band background, which is awesome. So like who, I guess, are your influences in terms of like your music, your style of music?
You're talking to two of the biggest jazz heads in Couch right now. That's actually the only reason I know the rest of the band is through Jeff. We played sax and trumpet together in high school a lot. But I feel like I have like my saxophone influences who I studied in order to kind of develop the language of jazz and funk and soul. And for me, I mean, Charlie Parker is like the greatest of all time. I really like Cannonball Adderley for just like bluesy speaking through the saxophone, you know. But a lot of my bigger influences on me just as a musician are other types of instrumentalists or actually vocalists. So I was really into like blues guitar, and my first instrument was actually guitar. So Stevie Ray Vaughan and BB King and Buddy Guy are three guitarists I love, and then went through like all these phases. So like I had my 80s hair metal phase, and I think I got some like dramatic flair from that I try to bring to both our live performances, but also like the production of Couch, and like big contrast between sections to make it epic. And then I went through a big EDM phase in middle school, the dubstep days. I was like headbanging on the school bus. And more recently, I'd say Earth, Wind, and Fire and Tower of Power and great funk bands, that really are groove first are big influences. And my favorite album in the last couple of years has been the Silk Sonic album with Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, because I feel like it combines some of that jazz and R&B sensibility with just mainstream pop appeal and danceability. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for when I make music now. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said a lot of the things that I would also say, which is that there's not one artist that I listen to and I'm like, they're doing it all exactly how I would do it. There are lots of trumpet players that I listen to where I'm like, I would love to be able to play the trumpet like this guy or this girl. But they're playing classical music, and I like classical music a lot, but they have crazy technique and all this stuff. But oh, I wish that I could play like that, but in this genre. And there are lots of really excellent guitarists and keyboardists that just have such fluid vocabulary, and it just feels like they're speaking through their instrument and they don't have to think about what they're playing at all. But yeah, I think as a band, we certainly have aspirational musicians and groups that were like, this is someone that loosely aligns with our genre that we could see ourselves like following in their footsteps or something like that. But that's not necessarily the same thing as being like, we musically want to sound like them. And yeah, I'd say that the people that I musically want to sound like now are not necessarily instrumentalists, but more so producers. I listen to a lot of, yes, like EDM, but just like electronic music. And I think like, wow, their sound design is so good, and their kick drums and their snares sound so full. Like, how do they do that? And I listen to some like live records or NPR Tiny Desk and things like that. And I'm trying to dissect like, how do they make their drums sound so clear in such a small room? Like all these things. And I think even as a band, like a lot of those discussions about production and things like that are kind of, seeping into our brains a lot, just as much as musical things like, oh, that's a really cool chord progression, or I like how they resolve this harmony or something like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So, speaking of all these influences, obviously you guys have named a lot of amazing artists. If you could have anyone to sit on your couch with you, who would it be? As in any artist you dream of like collaborating with one day?
I'd say Jacob Collier for me. I've like gone through all of those music theory interviews with him, and I think that he's just such a fun person to listen to. I like hearing him speak, and obviously I think that he's one of the greatest musical minds of this current era in our age group too. So yeah, I'd love to hang out with Jacob.
Absolutely.
Definitely agree with that, but I will also add one thing that I'm excited about musically is kind of this intersection between really commercially appealing, like top 40 type music, and like musicians' music that the band geeks freak out about. And I say that with love because it's me. But For me, in the last couple of years, I mentioned that Silk Sonic album. Like, I think Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars are just doing it the best. But I also think I'd love to meet Dua Lipa. I think her album Future Nostalgia is like such a good disco funk album and has so much raw musicianship on it. And the production is insane. And like, I don't know, I'm really excited about um kind of the slow permeation of like soul pop and kind of Couch's world of music into more mainstream music. So like right now, Lawrence is opening for the Jonas Brothers, and like Harry Styles has horns all over his last album, and the Dua Lipa album, Silk Sonic. Like, I really think that the scene of pop music is kind of like putting live instruments a little bit more into the limelight. Again, like, I think it fluctuates as the eras of popular music change, but I'd love to meet Dua Lipa. I think Charlie Puth also does a great job making a really musically engaging music that both casual listeners and serious musicians like. So I'd love to meet Charlie Puth, Dua Lipa, Silk Sonic, people who combine the things that I love.
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I have another question. So we know you guys are on a 20-city national tour, and one of our WRSU members actually went to your Brooklyn show, and she got to shoot that. So that was a really cool opportunity. And thank you guys for the photo pass. I also saw a lot of videos from the crowd, and they look very energetic. The stage is very vibrant with color. How has touring been in general, and any like special highlights or moments from the show that you'd like to share?
I mean, touring has been, for me as an individual in the band, getting better and better as we settle into it more. And I think that's the case for everyone. Our performances get more satisfying. Audiences learn more and more of our music. So it's just really rewarding to be on tour. And especially a highlight, obviously, this past weekend with the Royale in Boston hometown show, and then Brooklyn Bowl the next night, which was 2 nights ago. Our two biggest headline shows to date in one weekend. So that's obviously a very special milestone as a band. Yeah, I mean, one thing that you just said is like the audience seemed really engaged, which is something that we love to see as a band and love to kind of have that experience. And there are certain people that listen to our music that are musicians themselves, like the band geek types that Eric just referenced earlier. And it's so funny. There are people that like know exactly, like, I can't wait for this horn solo, or listen to like this guitar part here. This is crazy. And they're listening in for the specific details of the parts that we play in the shows. And it's fun just like seeing people react and hearing them, because like you can pull out one of the earplugs and be like, yep, I hear that like someone's reacting to this thing that just went on. And that's fun. It's good when people are really paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll add that our show in Boston this weekend was our by far the highest production value show we've ever put on. The venue Royale turns into a kind of like an nightclub after, so they have these crazy video screens. There's video screens on the ceiling, an insane lighting setup, and we had a really fun time collaborating with some visual artists and videographers to kind of put together to utilize the capabilities of the venue. And that's been a learning process and a really fun element too. I'm really excited to, as we continue to tour over the years, play bigger venues and utilize some cool high-tech stuff to make our show that much doper.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. And my final question is, now that the EP's out, what is next for Couch? If you have any idea.
Or like, what do you want next? I mean, I feel like we kind of went over, but I guess give us something else that you're really looking forward to.
Yeah, so first, I mean, the immediate thing is that we're still pretty early on in our tour for the Sunshower tour. So we'll be doing shows all the way through the beginning of next year, through January 2024. We're going to hit the West Coast, do a couple shows out there, Colorado, some Texas shows. It's our first time down in Texas as a band. So in the immediate future, it's just shows. That's hard to say fast. Shows. And we hope to be working on new music as we're touring and continually into the future. And I think we're all excited to just keep sharing new music and developing our sound or sounds. Yeah, I don't know, Jeff, any ideas?
Definitely. I mean, throughout the process of making this past EP and getting our live show ready for this tour, we definitely stumbled across a lot of musical ideas that we started exploring and didn't like finish or didn't, make the cut for this EP. And certainly by hopefully around this time next year or in the future, like at least some new music should definitely be on the way. That's something that bands do, they release music. But yeah, that's certainly something that I'm really looking forward to personally, is just getting back in the studio and workshopping things together in rehearsal and just experimenting more once we're back home and have some time to settle, and don't have to worry about playing gigs multiple times a week. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to look forward to. And also, as we play these shows, we obviously record a lot of the shows, and we haven't really decided anything specific yet, but it'd be so great to figure out like lots of great things to do with all of these live recordings that we're getting, and maybe put together something like that, video opportunities. There's so much. So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like media opportunities to think about, which I think is really cool that you guys get to have that like creative kind of like ability to do that. Anything else, Jamie?
I think those are all my questions, but if you guys want to drop how else we can support you guys, how WRSU can support you, or
Absolutely.
any other last minute promotions you guys want to do.
Definitely check out our social media. We're at couch.theband on Instagram. And I think it's just Couch the Band on TikTok. There might be a dot in there too. But you'll find us. Please listen to our music. The Sunshower EP is out everywhere. It really helps if you save it to playlists too. And there's such a variety of kind of vibes on that EP that I feel like it could fit on any playlist. So we would love it if you take a listen. Come to a show if you're in Seattle, Portland. I'm not going to go over the West Coast.
Couchtheband.com/tour. It's couchtheband.com/tour is where you can actually go click on whichever show you want. But yeah, at this point, we still have like 15 cities left on tour throughout West Coast, Colorado, Texas, and then the Midwest in January. So we're not too far from anywhere, really.
Yeah.
We have some fun stuff on YouTube too, since we did our last interview with you guys. We put out the Sweater Sessions, which is a series of 3 videos that we did live in studio at home in Boston. But it's sort of a different take on some of our songs that we have recorded, and also a cover of Vienna by Billy Joel, kind of funkified, featuring Jeff on the trumpet. That was fun to put together.